The DOJ now trying to pressure war coverage at Murdoch's Wall Street Journal. That's, of course, Fox News' sister outlet. They're using subpoenas, and the government is claiming illegal leaks to, according to many experts, abuse power to shape or stifle critical war coverage, which, of course, the country is aware of because it is partly the press and information about the war, its reality, that's made it a very unpopular war, plus the economic fallout. And I have more on that part of the story later tonight. It is a problem for Trump and the midterms. But this story is one where journalists must actually also kind of weigh how we, in this case, our colleagues at the Journal, peers, competitors, whatever you call it, but how journalists report on something that Trump has done more than any other administration since Nixon. How do we report on the government trying to make us, our reporting, or our colleagues and competitors' reporting part of the story? Well, the Journal has decided to report on unusual subpoenas that its own journalists, reporters received from the Trump DOJ, as you see here. The masthead is the Wall Street Journal. This story is about the Wall Street Journal. This is reporting about how they are reporting and being potentially intimidated or punished through this government that they're reporting on. Now, to be clear, this has been a losing revenge streak in legal moves by Trump. And you probably, if you follow the news, have heard about them. We've seen these efforts against people. James Comey was a big story. He did an interview on MS Now with Nicole just yesterday. We're also seeing it against institutions and journalism itself. That article I just put on the screen notes that the paper received grand jury subpoenas for records of its reporters covering this war. Now, this is a huge deal. This is about war, which is one of the obviously most important and grave powers a president wields. And remember, this war, which has proven so unpopular, is being waged unilaterally. The president did not work with Congress. The president did not address the nation up front or leave any time for any kind of meaningful dissent or protest. He launched a proactive attack on Iran. The strait that was once open for our energy needs is now closed. The ceasefire exists. We don't know what comes next. But I mentioned that brief war history to say that with Congress cut out of the loop and the American public cut out of the loop, one of the only other measures left is journalism reporting how the war is going and the facts about the war. And the facts have been, to put it fairly, mixed, negative. Plenty of them look bad for the Donald Trump administration, for the war planning, and obviously for the gas prices and the economy we're all living through. And against that type of accurate, or shall we say evidence-based information, this government, your government, is responding by trying to intimidate, legally stifle, and potentially jail the people doing that reporting. You know, I always try to talk to you. I mean, I'm talking through a camera, right? But I always try to talk to you directly about what we know and don't know and what's happening. This is what's happening. And we know it's a problem. We also know that our Constitution, the 250 years that we're celebrating, argues exactly against any leader, I don't care what party, who would try to rule our government and crush the First Amendment. It's the first for a reason, and crush this type of free speech. So that's why this matters. Andrew, as I mentioned, joins me shortly. I want to tell you about the methods because it's really something. Trump delivering his message on a sticky note with the word treason in Sharpie placed atop a stack of printed articles that he handed to the acting attorney general. That's how some of this got started, according to a very detailed account from CNN's reporting. Now, that official is, of course, Todd Blanche. And he's under this public pressure by Trump to take measures that, I want to be clear, might ultimately, if he takes them, see Mr. Blanche investigated, sanctioned, or disbarred. He knows, with his law degree and his experience, that if he actually is going out and pursuing baseless, false claims against journalists or others that are only designed to intimidate, to do selective prosecution, or to shape war propaganda, yeah, you can lose your law license over that. And if you look at these polls, it's not clear that Trump's friends are going to be in office forever. Trump shared a literal enemies list as well that demands that Blanche indict John Brennan, Hillary Clinton, and Barack Obama. So it's someone else's post, as you see, and it's Donald J. Trump, the sitting president, who shared it, reposting that. The idea of the Trump DOJ indicting Barack Obama may sound far-fetched, even after everything. But the evidence we have shows that in his demands, Trump is serious. It was once far-fetched to think he would abuse legal powers against so many sitting lawmakers, an FBI director, a CIA director, the current Republican leading the Fed. That's already happened. I keep showing you this chart because it's a fact, and it is a problem if our country lets this become normal or memory hold like so much other civic amnesia that we have. This is our current situation. So you can't just look at the new next effort by Trump to turn up the heat on a supplicant like Blanche and say, well, he won't go to Clinton or Obama. They very well may try. Remember, this list of faces were already pursued, most of them, under an attorney general that Donald Trump just canned for not doing enough, in his view. That's why we have Blanche instead of Bondi. Now, the guardrails have still prevented any of these efforts from succeeding. Depending on how you count, he's 0 for 20 or 0 for 25, 0 and 25, but none of these cases have led to any conviction. Many of them, as you saw, have been tossed. But Trump views Blanche as his enforcer.
We have a man who's doing a great job, I'll tell you. I knew it because he kept me out of jail for years. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. I said the other day that some of that stuff should be looked into. They said, weaponization. He's a terrible human being. Weaponization, right, Cash? They blame me for weaponization.
He is not the communicator he once was. Indeed, Donald Trump, who used to be pretty good at PR, knows that you don't just repeat the attacks on yourself. They blame me for weaponization, he says, reminding everyone that he is weaponizing the government, using a term that even the right has said is bad, because he is weaponizing the government. You can call it weaponization, you can call it lawfare. The actual term in the law, when you prove that the government has gone after a person for illicit reasons rather than just investigate the facts where they lead, it's called selective prosecution. It gets your case tossed. It can get the prosecutors, of course, sanctioned, as I mentioned, which is something that Mr. Blanche should think about. It's not my job to give him legal advice, but we'll run this clip later if we have to, if Mr. Blanche ultimately not only discredits himself, but loses his law license or worse, because if he goes forward with some of these things, like going after Obama and Clinton because the president asked for it, yeah, that would look like selective prosecution without at least clear evidence to the contrary. Now, Trump is taking these legal weapons well beyond the Obamas or the Democrats that he's called out, or the critics. He is now, as I mentioned, the lead story that we're going to bring Andrew in on, going after the conservative institution of Murdoch's Wall Street Journal. Now, previously, you may recall, he sued them over their Epstein coverage and lost in the civil courts. And I want to be clear. Anyone in this country can afford themselves the civil courts, including government incumbents. So that is something he can do. He lost, so he had no case, but he can do that. But after failing, what we're seeing now, and why I mention it to bring us up to speed to tonight, is Trump's doubling down with this criminal probe, which is much more serious, using a criminal investigation and those kind of subpoenas for journalists, which carry the implied threat of potential jail time if you don't cooperate, and using the part of our system that is strong. When you say to the courts, well, this could be national security or this affects war, there might be illegal government leaks, that can matter. And by the way, the DOJ is allowed, of course, to pursue illegal government leaks. That usually means going after the person in government who broke the law. The journalists didn't if they only reported something that came from the government, but they can do that. The question here is whether this is abuse of power, leaning on that type of power to silence and censor the war coverage. Now, Rupert Murdoch is a big figure. He has a complex history with Trump, but he still runs Fox News, which nowadays Trump and MAGA see as a very friendly place. But just like Putin started with the biggest opposition critics, but moved on to other people that used to be in his inner circle, Trump will go after you even if you own Fox News. Nobody is really safe if you start publishing or airing things he disagrees with. Remember, Rupert Murdoch is such a kind of big political figure. They had that whole show and character based off him in HBO's Succession. Now, this is fiction, echoing perhaps some view of reality, but they cast Murdoch as someone who was tough and willing to fight anyone.
Here's a safety briefing. If you move against me, I'll put a hole in the back of your head.
Tough guy. That is a fictional character based on the real Murdoch, but plenty of folks said that that toughness and that style reflects the now aging patriarch of that conservative empire.
Well, I'm glad the Wall Street Journal is resisting. They've done terrific reporting. There's been other great reporting by other news organizations. The New York Times, the Washington Post continues to do excellent reporting as well. I mean, this is part of an attack from all angles on the press. So you have these grand jury subpoenas against the Wall Street Journal. You had a raid on the home of a Washington Post reporter where they confiscated all of her, it was an unprecedented raid in a national security investigation, seizing all of her electronic devices. You have the EEOC bringing discrimination complaint against the New York Times because a white male reporter didn't get a promotion he wanted. You have apparently the FBI apparently investigating the Atlantic magazine for reporting on Kash Patel and his alleged heavy drinking and his other behavior. So really all across the board, you're seeing this administration use every weapon within its possession to attack the press, to harass the press, and to endeavor to intimidate the press.